Over there?
Hello.
So here we go.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, good evening. Let's start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the
republic
For
which it stands, one
nation.
nation, under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all.
Belinda, may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Frank Maupin,
Here.
Dottie Williams,
Here.
Don Kincaid,
Here.
Britt Bourne,
Present.
Dan Lehan. He's there. Okay.
Here.
Tom and Steve are absent right now. They will probably join shortly, but should we excuse them? Or do you want to wait a little?
I make a motion, we excuse him.
We'll get a second on that one. Yeah, it's been moving that we excuse. And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
I have a question about excusing members and then them coming into the meeting. With them being excused, are they able to then be able to vote since they've been excused?
I don't know.
They are. And we can retract the need to excuse them if they appear.
Oh, that's
I only ask because we had this issue a few times in our council meetings.
Okay.
So
You should have had Al in there.
I just want to make sure we do it right so that, somebody don't come back after reading our minutes. Well, they were excused, but then they voted. So that's the only reason I bring it up.
Well, let's retract it right now. Mr. Carroll joined us, so.
I move to retract.
Second. Or whatever.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Finish the roll call.
Okay, moving right along here. Can we have the reading and approval of the minutes for those that didn't? Are there any questions? Any changes or corrections? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
It's been approved, or moved and approved. Any opposed? Okay, accepted. Okay. Additions to the agenda, are there any?
Someone wrote into my notes that the trustee term safety was there. The trustees bylaws were put in.
For the safety board member, their term is up, which is at the end of this year, which would be Tom Carroll and BJ Yetter.
Oh, okay.
Just need to mention that every time
Okay, so their
at the end
term.
of the year to make sure that their councils reappoint them or. Okay.
Okay.
Any more questions on that? Okay, Tom, BJ, you're aware of that, correct? Excellent.
Yes, I'm aware. Thank you.
Moving right along. Hey, Tom, can you hear us?
I can. Yes, I'm on mute, which long overdue.
Oh. Okay. I like it.
Terrible.
Report of from the district clerk.
Okay, the first couple things are the expense reports for October and November. If you'd like to take a look at those, or if you have already, and if you have any questions.
Are there any questions?
I have none. I have no questions.
Okay, I will go to the year-to-date financial report for 2020.
All right.
Now, this is a little bit, the meeting is the first Tuesday, so December 1st is, and then we had to get everything out early last week. So this is not going to be all the way to November, but of what I gave you, but I will fill you in what's happened since then. So the report that you have, just want to mention that, let's see, 140 is our grant reimbursement, $2,500. We're still going to get that. I wanted to mention 160 EMS billing. It says that we've received 235,000 and we had budgeted 300,000, but actually as of today, we've received 250,000. And in December, we should receive probably 24,000 more. Okay, so we may still be a little bit short there, but not too much. Underneath 165 is Bwc Dividend. We've received 3 now, and I'm sure the cities and the villages that have as well. Anybody, I think that any business that paid into BWC is getting a dividend this month, a really good one. It's really good. What were they? $5 billion?
Yep.
$5 billion they had. They did really good, that workers' compensation. So they're going to give us $50,000.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So we are yet to get that, but I went ahead and updated our certificate of amended resources. So let's see. So I just wanted to let you know that some of these numbers have changed a little bit based on what I know is going to come in. So really, right now, we're at 98% of our revenue coming in. And instead of that, right now it says total income as of this report was 1,843,266.73. But I believe that it's actually going to be, if not more, 1,933,000. Okay, and we'll talk about that in the end, at the end of this report, how that will reflect. As far as expenses go, everything is on target. I wanted to mention, you'll probably notice it looks a little bit different. In the middle there, under what, 300,028 EMS supplies. Our EMS supplies budget is 29,000, but I kind of separated it because we are getting that AFG COVID-19 grant where it's reimbursable. So the chief sent I think, what is it going to be? Almost $10,000, little over $9,000. And
Correct. It was just under 10,000.
10,000
Yeah.
this year and next year. So he sent in bills for $3,560.95. So we were expecting that in from the grant reimbursement or from the AFG. And I actually, well, we already got it. We got it like in one day. So above an income, it's there. Okay. And as we get more in, then I'll increase that. But I thought that was cool because when we get audited, we have to show, you know, they told us that I didn't have to put it in another fund where most municipalities and other entities do, because it has to go for the fire fund, and our fire fund is our general fund. Okay, so as long as I keep track of it, you know, like I'm doing here, we'll be fine. We got, let's see, $300,039, the monitor. I actually just paid for that today. The $12,250 doesn't show it on here because, you know, this is a little bit older, but I did pay for that today. Everything else is really pretty on target. We're going to have some money left over, and I'll get into that on the next page. Legal counsel, we're not gonna end up, we still have $16,390 there, and we're not gonna spend all that. State unemployment, we didn't get anything, so we're not going to spend that. So basically, I just want to let you know that we carried over from 2019 to 2020, we carried over $1,394,005.69, and that is still in reserves. We haven't touched that.
Repeat that.
$1,394,005.69. And you will see that number again in our 5-year forecast. If
Okay.
you want to look it up, you'll see that.
Okay.
Okay, you know, this budget shows that we expected to lose $212,000, but after the chief and I went through every line item, and he told me where he doesn't think he's going to need to spend the money, or, you know, we are looking, and you'll see that on the 5-year forecast, we may have a $60,000 deficit, but we still may not. So I don't know exactly I don't know for sure yet, but you know, it's still been a pretty good year. So I'm guessing that our carryover guesstimating is going to be $1,326,000. So you know, just based on the numbers, just what I can tell right now, we may have a $60,000 loss or deficit, and that will come out of our reserve. Does anyone have any questions on that?
You said $1,060 loss?
Well, I don't know. The budget showed that we would have a $212,000 loss.
I see that.
But we're guesstimating that it may be 60,000.
Just a $60,000 loss, or $1,060,000, or
no. We may have a $60,000 loss is what we're guessing.
okay.
Hopefully not.
Okay.
But that is just a guesstimate at this point.
Okay.
And we can go over this a little bit more. You'll see on the 5-year forecast, which is different than the budget. I actually went in on the 5-year forecast and put where we really think the numbers are going to be. And we can always change this since it is a forecast, but you know, I don't know for sure if you know, something's going to happen to one of the vehicles and we need to spend $10,000 on fixing it, we still, you know, we still have a month left. I don't know what's going to happen with salaries. We may need a little bit more, a little bit less. I'm not sure, but we're keeping a little padding in there just in case. Just like with everything else, we're afraid to, we don't want to reduce everything down right now. But was there any other questions on that?
Yes.
Belinda, I didn't have any questions. I do want to talk about the 5-year forecast when we get to that.
Okay.
But I wanted to commend you and Chief for coming in, whatever that would turn out to be, about $160,000 below the budgeted deficit. So that's outstanding. And thank you, especially in a year that's been uniquely challenging. So
Yeah, thank you very much. It that 50,000 from BWC is just, we're just so excited about that. That really helps everybody. So, okay, it looks like next we are on the 2021 appropriations. And it says that's a 2021 budget. You'll have the, it says 2021 budget, and then right after that should be 2021 appropriations. And the reason that I show it to you like this is because the second form, the one that shows personal services and all other services, this is how we appropriate now and have for the last couple years, I believe. So you'll see, you can look at both. Really, it's just the expenses, what the appropriations are. And it's 2,106,500. And you'll see that 1,718,000 is personal services, and all other services are 387,573.71. So that just shows you, I think it's like 78% of our budget is for personal services. And this is what we went over the last meeting, and it's just a little bit off from our tax budget, which, you know, that is just an estimate that we did back in June. Does anyone have any questions on this? No. We'll be passing a resolution this evening for the appropriations. All right, next I have the 5-year forecast. It seems like I've shown this a couple times this year. Usually we don't show it in December, but we thought it was a good idea because the chief has been really working on this. So why don't you go ahead and start, Tom, if you have any questions.
So I love this document. Thank you for providing it. I wouldn't ask you to provide it every meeting because I'm sure this is a lot of work, but I would look at it if you provided it every meeting, but trust me, but I know that's not the ask. So what I love about this document from the board perspective is it relates, I think, most importantly to when we go out to the voters the next time for a tax increase. Whether that's an additional levy or a replacement or renewal, however we strategize on this. And if I'm looking at this correctly, on the second page is in sometime between 2022 and 2023 is when we dip below 600,000, which is what we have verbally discussed as sort of the point at which we go back out to the voters. So that is right on target with what we've talked about previously, if I'm not mistaken, Belinda and Denny.
Yes.
That's correct.
So that's good. And routinely we go through this exercise every year, and this is not at all to sound like a complaint. It's a good thing, but we budget a deficit of 220 and we come in at a deficit where there's no deficit or there's a surplus. And this is how these property tax funds work, right? Every year in the early years of a levy, you're operating at a surplus. And then as the buying power of that goes down over time, as wage increases take place, but the property levy is frozen, the buying power of that goes down, and eventually you get into a deficit situation and draw down on it. So you do this kind of trend. So it's not a complaint at all that we are operating at a deficit in 2020 of 60,000. It's as I said earlier, it's great that we're only at 60,000 instead of at a higher. My concern is that every year, if we are routinely exceeding the budget, this forecast is showing the point at which we'll go out for a levy 2022, 2023. It's probably more like 23 or 24, right? I mean, I know we're conservative in terms of our budgeting. You're showing conservative. You're showing sort of we're taking kind of not a worst case scenario, but like the least optimistic scenario.
Right.
So if you guys want to comment on what you see and how I'm describing where we think the levy is going to be in actuality, it's okay to show it this way. That's not a complaint. It's simply an observation. I think we're probably better than 22 or 23 for a tax increase.
I think so. Just the way I kind of analyze it here, if everything remains the same without a significant increase in income, I'm with you that it's probably 2023 to 2024, which in the grand scheme of things would put us 10 years between our previously passed levy, which I think is good. So yeah, we do kind of take this as a kind of the worst case scenario, like you said. I would much rather have that extra year not to go to the voters than go a year early because we misappropriated or misread how the numbers look. But
right.
I'm thinking between the discussions will probably start in 2023. Do we go at what time? Maybe late 2023, early 2024. Obviously, we want to watch the election cycle too, because I don't want to put a special levy on and we'll be the only ones out there on it and incur that huge cost. So I'm kind of thinking that 2023 is when we'll start really having those conversations in depth.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, Tom and Chief, there's a question I have out there. Belinda, have you seen, when's the next reevaluation on property taxes going to occur?
Next year.
Next year.
Yeah.
So we might see a little more guidance on what that's going to do for us when we go out for a levy. If we see some increases in property values in both communities. That tangent effect, I think, might help us understand what's a good time. I agree with everything Tom's saying that, we're going to probably stay within our parameters and, we're going to be ahead of the game. But I just honestly think that if we do go next year and we see the property values increase, or if we just see a flattening of the curve, as they call it, I just think that then that'll give us a little more insight of where we should go and what time. I just think that's something we should keep on the radar screen. Other than that, I agree with Chief. I agree with you and Tom on this. I think that's the way we got to look at things. So, if we don't, then we're being foolish. So.
One thing I want to mention, if you look at the second page down on the bottom, excess of revenues over or under expenditures, it's line 99. Those are the numbers. It shows, I don't want to say, I hate to say profit or loss, but we've only actually from the beginning, I remember from 1999, I believe we've only had a loss 1 or 2 years, and it wasn't a big one. So it just shows you over the years, that is how much money was added to our carryover. So we have not had to dip into our carryover at all, and these numbers have added to our carryover. So if we're forecasting correctly, 2020 will be the first time that that some of our money is going to come out of that carryover.
Yes, and I think that's right, Belinda, and it's commendable. I also think that we as a board should recognize that there will come times where we are actually drawing down on reserve because the buying power of the levy has gone down over time. And so we shouldn't be afraid of that as if the goal is to make a profit. It's not, and I'm not saying you're saying that, but let's not be afraid to draw down on those reserves that are built up in the 7 years where we're feasting, and then the 7 years of famine where we're, I don't want to wax biblical, but nevertheless, that's how this works.
Correct. And the chief will talk about this in a minute. You remember on the bottom, I used to show retirements. Well, the one that was coming up in 2024, we don't have to pay that because he resigned. So we're saving, good or bad, we're saving some money there. Mine, I think, would be the next one, and that's 2027.
It's become Sycamore's liability for good or for bad, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it looks like that's all I have, unless you have any more questions.
It ain't easy being green, Tom. I make a motion to accept the reports.
Second.
Motion's been made. It's been second. All in favor, or any other discussions or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No opposed? The reports have been accepted. Thank you, Belinda. Now we'll have the report of the Director of Operations, Fire Chief.
Okay. Since you received your packets, we've increased to 141 addresses that are known COVID positive. We don't see it coming down anytime soon. So, of course, we'll take every precaution we can. The one self-quarantine came back with a negative test. His wife is doing fine. One of our part-timers, his quarantine was up and also tested negative. He works for the city full-time. That's where he most likely got it. I do have one full-timer that is quarantining this week. His girlfriend has a positive test. So far, he's feeling well. He took his first test on Tuesday, and we're waiting results. It ended up being his Kelly week anyway, so we most likely were just going to miss 1 day of coverage. So overall, the staff has done a tremendously good job. We sanitize the equipment, the station, doorknobs, light switches, telephones. They've really done a good job of stepping up to try to keep the place healthy. So couldn't do it without all the crews. As Belinda said, the heart monitors, they arrived a lot faster than we thought. So we went ahead and put those in the service. So the two medic units, the primary medic units, and then the chase car all have the version 3, which we anticipate should get us about 10 years of service. That's been our history with the last version. So we're up and good to go. The crews are appreciative that the board went ahead and got 2 and keep us modern. So they wanted to thank you for that. I'd like to thank Deer Park. Today's meeting, the CARES Act funding that comes out, fire districts weren't eligible for it. We're not considered a political subdivision like villages, townships, cities. So we looked into some maybe ways of either having that money come available to us, and it didn't seem like there was much political interest at the county level. That was from some discussions that Tom had with some of the commissioners. It was worth a shot, but it just didn't work out. Deer Park had some extra money that they hadn't dedicated to any kind of funds yet. So Councilman Tom Camp, who's also a volunteer deputy fire chief for us, really spearheaded that to try to get a direct purchase that we would then use as part of our daily routine. And that way we wouldn't have to go through all the sub-granting and other paperwork that BJ said as he looked into it was a nightmare for tracking. So They're on order. We're just waiting to get them. This is going to be a great asset to our personnel on scene, not just for COVID type situations, but anytime we can not have our hands on a patient doing CPR, particularly in the back of the ambulance, that's a good thing. So it's definitely going to be a super safe advantage to us. And I'd like to thank Deer Park and their council for thinking of us during COVID. We greatly appreciate it. And as since the last meeting and the last email that went out to you to the board, Gulf Manor is looking at our proposal that we made, the term sheet that Alan prepared for us back in October. Again, as I explained to you guys just through informational blast out, was that they really preferred that somebody would staff their station. We looked at it, give it consideration, the pros and cons of what that would take. And Chris and I didn't feel that it was a position that would benefit us in the long run. If anything, it might be a detriment to us. So we are not proposing a model that we would staff the second station down there. We'll continue to stand behind our first presentation that we made, and their council is going to review it during the month of December, and hopefully get back with us with some more discussions or an answer first part of the year. So we're continuing to work on that front. And then the final thing I want to touch on was the resignation of Kevin Rogers. Was in your packets. Kevin was he was titled EMS chief until the CBA reduced that job function into the form of the fire captain. He gave us his 2 weeks notice. In fact, it's 2 weeks ago tomorrow. I sat down and talked with him. What were some concerns that he might have had? Why would he want to go to another fire department, especially this late in his career? And he had nothing but positive things to say about the district, how we operate, our equipment. He feels that there's an economic benefit to him without having the position of being a line officer. So I wish him the best. I hope he does well at Sycamore. But that is going to put us in a position where we're now operating with five that are doing the shift work. So the question is how do we fill a need that's popped up relatively quickly? I talked with Tom and BJ just kind of off the side about some ideas, because as managers of villages and cities, they sometimes run into these quick hires where maybe you don't necessarily use the procedures you've established. They suggest we talk to Alan, so I did some back and forth with Alan over this. And basically, what we've got to do is we've got to identify a candidate relatively quickly that can fill our need. But I need to make sure that this candidate is going to be successful here, stay for at least a period of time to get us through any transitions we make or any kind of new things we take on. And the way we have it structured now, it's the process that we have in place that the board approved several years ago. We're talking that's probably a 45 to 60 day process. That's been our experience with running it a couple times now. So Alan's suggestion was, do we want to maybe look at what are the key elements of that procedure that we would feel we need to do to feel comfortable with finding a candidate? And then what would the board say? No, we absolutely, we absolutely have to have this part of the process in. So it's going to take a little bit of thought, because part of what we have to do too is we have to determine is at the board level and how we structure. My recommendation that came out with that I'm going to recommend to the board is that we would promote Josh Felser from lieutenant to shift captain. And then we need to determine, are we going to continue to have a layer of lieutenants that are full-timers, or are we going to start relying on senior personnel that can act in place of an officer when an officer is off duty? again, with holidays, vacations, sick time, Kelly days, it does get tough to do. So that's some of the discussion we need to have. But one of the things too that I'm looking at our internal people that may be interested in the job, and we have some that are qualified, that would be great entry level fire paramedics. But because I need somebody that's going to be able to step up relatively quickly to run a shift in the absence of the shift officer, the shift captain, I'm really thinking that an outside candidate might be, we might be able to get one from another department that could kind of get us over the hump, somebody that we can rely on pretty quickly. So that's kind of where we stand on that. I know it's a lot of verbal communication, but I'm interested to hear what the board thinks. And Alan, if you would like to kind of hit the legal aspects of where that stands.
Yeah, so Dan and I talked about the options. So it's important to keep in mind, first of all, that the district is not subject to state civil service requirements, so we don't have to worry about that. The collective bargaining agreement leaves hiring completely as a management right, so it does not require or prohibit any hiring procedure. So our hiring process is governed by the SOG that the board adopted. And as you know, what the board adopts, the board can change or the board can rescind. So if you decide that you want to make a hire that's on an expedited timeline and is not going to take the 45 to 60 days that Denny's experience tells him it would take to hire somebody to fill the pretty urgent need that we have, then you could modify a process for this time based on the urgent circumstances. And as Denny said, decide what about our process do you really need to have to feel comfortable with the hire. So if you take some time to look at the SOG, it specifies a whole process where we go through advertising and we go through psychological testing and verification of certifications. And then there's a community panel and there are other interviews. And there are probably 10 or 12 other items that we go through. So what Danny and I discussed was to identify what about that process is really crucial to make a hire on a more expedited basis. And then what would the board agree that they need and recognize that they don't need to make a hire like this. So that's really the backdrop for the discussion. And the question is really, what do you feel comfortable with? We don't have another meeting that's scheduled for a couple of months, but if we can identify a process that works for everybody, and then he can identify the right candidate or candidates to consider, we could hold a special meeting to approve the hire, essentially make a one-time exception to the SOG that you have every right to do because it's your SOG, and hire someone on a more expedited basis. So if you want to go that route, then Denny could identify process, candidate, and then bring it back to you, kind of wrapped up as a package, and we could conduct a meeting by Zoom and go ahead and make the hire on a faster timeline.
Then one thing too, I should have included this before I cut to you. It's with near certainty that I do have another full-time candidate that is most likely going to accept a position with Miami Township, Claremont County. Again, he was kind enough to let me know, so we have a little time to plan for that as well. And again, it's as we sat down and talked, it's about how he feels he can financially benefit him and his soon-to-be wife and what they want to do. So again, it's been typical when we lose people. It's usually the financial background, or it really hasn't been an operational / they don't like how we do things, or they don't like the work atmosphere. So that's something we're going to have to cross relatively quickly the first part of next year as well. But this, so again, we'll have to, that one, we can probably run more as the open process that we've done in the past. You know, we can make adjustments to the vacancy procedure before that time comes. But I just wanted to mention that too, just because it kind of slipped my mind as I was going through my notes here.
Alan, I have a question. The board put this policy together, but don't we, and I know we did that for a lot of reasons, but do we want to put a time limit on this thing that it gets revisited and reviewed by the board on a periodic basis? And the only reason I bring this up is because I know we're in a pinch right now, but down the road, there could be other constraints that we need to look at. And that we're, you know, making another addendum to an addendum or whatever. I just think that we need to make sure that we know that we have this process. We don't want to taint it, but at the same time, these exceptions are going to come forth off and on because of the workforce that's out there.
Yeah, I think generally it's a good idea to review these policies periodically, just to put them in place and then forget about them. But then when circumstances change, our policies don't necessarily change with them, although Denny does a good job of reviewing them. I think it makes sense to consider writing into the policy some sort of emergency circumstance exclusion, so you at least provide for it and it doesn't appear to be something you do on an ad hoc basis. I mean, here I think we can, you know, Denny's laid out the case. We've lost one, we're about to lose another. As you say, BJ, the hiring market is very difficult right now. So I think it's perfectly appropriate to say here, look, our process just doesn't work for this situation. You know, it's our process. It's designed for normal circumstances. These are anything but normal circumstances. So we need to do something differently. I think it's probably a good idea to write that in and give the board a little bit more discretion up front so it doesn't seem like it's being changed on the fly. So I think as we consider what this more expedited process should be, that's something we can do. So when we have our next meeting, if we have one on a special meeting basis, then we can consider kind of writing something into the existing SOG that at least anticipates this happening.
Well, I think it's number one, it's kudos to you, Denny, simply because of the fact that evidently these guys are being trained well enough that they're accepted into these other fire stations.
Yeah, I talked with Alan. I said, I feel I'm tired of being in the minor leagues.
Understood. Well, you know, sometime in the end, a stepping stone will float to the top. So we'll see what happens with that. But also, as far as streamlining or adding an addendum to this so that can be, the process can be expedited. Have you already thought of the parts that can be either bypassed or streamlined or whatever it would take?
Yeah, I've given some thought to that. I have a couple of notes here that I think with I didn't want to just rattle on about it. I don't think it would do it because this was not included with the paperwork because we were still trying to verify some things on the transition. I apologize for that, but with the holiday, I ran out of time. But I can certainly send an advisory email to the board with the current copy of the procedure. It's in our exit poll manual. It's the same one that you guys approved when we did it in the Word documents, just transferred over to their format. And I'd be happy to make some notes as to what I think might not be as important to get a candidate hired, yet at the same time, make sure the board is comfortable, make sure the community is comfortable, and ensure that we're doing right, you know, as we hire somebody. Because obviously, you know, this is a public position, and I don't want to do anything that's going to look like we're not doing it with the right intentions, the right ethics behind it. You know, I don't want to, I'll make sure the we're as open as we can about this, but I'd be happy to send over an edited, notated document for you guys to look at.
That sounds good. Are there any other questions or clarifications needed at this point? Anyone?
Danny, I think you ought to also include in your draft of thinking, what elements in a fast track are you really going to need? The psychological, the background checks, all those normal things. But the biggest thing is that I think that process has to be vetted pretty strong, so the board can have a little comfort knowing that if we're bringing somebody in from the outside,
Right.
we're not bringing somebody with baggage.
Right.
And I'm pretty blunt when I say that, because there's a lot of that running around. So you work too hard to have to turn around and deal with another issue. So that's my only concern.
And I think that others of you have touched on this, but and I'm not saying anything about this particular situation, because I think that some kind of change or update is obviously warranted. But I do think that we have to be careful with the appearance of kind of changing things on a whim in the middle of things just because we need to. I'm all for, anytime there's bylaws or anything that needs to be updated, doing that at the beginning of the year, and then, whatever is approved at the beginning of that year, you're rolling with until, the next year, so that you can't just make changes kind of, I hate to say willy-nilly, but to prevent the ability to make changes willy-nilly kind of as we go. I don't think that that's what is happening in this particular situation. It's just something that we have to be very cognizant of, and as we go forward.
Yeah, Britt, I think those are excellent points. And Danny and I talked about that concern. And that's why, frankly, we wanted to have this discussion in an open meeting and make sure that everything was laid out on the table for the public to hear, for the board to vet in a public fashion. So it doesn't look like anything's being done behind the scenes and then we're just coming up with a justification after the fact for it. So we wanted to put this out there, get the board's input, and have the board be able to voice what's important to all of you in this process. So I think that that's very important to do. I think also that sometimes, when we draft a hiring process, it's geared more toward an entry level. And what we had here was the unusual circumstance of someone who was very senior and really, frankly, toward the end of his career, leaving unexpectedly. So our process doesn't necessarily account for that kind of a situation where we might need to take some different considerations into account. So I think that's just another reason why it's appropriate here in this situation to think about. But I think those are all good points, and really why we wanted to lay it out on the table publicly and make sure that there are no secrets about what's happening.
Danny, one last question for you. A situation like this becomes like a lateral entry situation. My concerns, if as we move through this SOG with any type of augmentation, that we address any type of lateral entry, for that the board doesn't, I hate to say this, but people accumulate sick time and everything else, and they bring that with it, and next thing you know, 2 years later they're going to retire, and then we got a huge liability sitting there. So I think we need to put that in the forefront.
After the some of that's addressed through the collective bargaining agreement, the sick time payout. There is a time frame that's significant. I believe it's 15 years. They have to be a full-time employee of our district. And then they actually, in the same that Sycamore has, some other departments have, you actually have to retire from the police and fire pension fund to get that payout.
Right.
So a resignation to go to another department basically takes you off the hook from that accrued sick time.
Well, I understand that, but I had several people when that worked for me years ago. We went and did some dancing around what they thought they should deserve and that. So, it's all good. And, I want to come work for you, but then they don't understand what it takes to work for you. So
Right.
I just want to make sure we're very specific about that.
Any other comments or questions?
I'll add my thoughts on some of the lateral information as well, BJ. Was if you do have to make a lateral transfer or a lateral hire, and it's just some basic things we thought of, to bring somebody in, and I mean, I understand it's one thing when you're the new guy coming in and it's your first job. You don't have a sick time bank, you don't have much of anything, you don't even really have vacation built up. But if we're asking somebody to make a change from one full-time department to another, I think there might be some package that we could make as a standardized, this is what we can provide you up front. And especially, if you're hiring somebody that's already got 10, 12, 13 years in, you're probably not going to be responsible for some of that payout unless they negotiate that out in a future contract, which I don't think the board would be willing to negotiate that out, is my feeling. But, that's for another discussion, another day.
Well, you're on the mark about it. I just know what I suffered through with 2 hires at Sycamore, and because our CBA didn't address a lot of things. So that was the other deal. That was our fault, and we got it handled. But it's just, I just want to make sure, that we're on the radar screen on that. So,
Right.
Other than that, you're fine. Thank you for listening, folks.
Thank you for speaking. Yeah, I mean, I'm learning a little bit here also, actually a lot. Are there any other questions or comments?
Are we looking for someone that has a lot of experience or just someone that has completed the training?
I think in this case, I think we would be looking for somebody that has some experience. Again, I want to be asking them pretty quickly to fill in as the person in charge of the shift when
Okay.
the captain is gone. And that's hard to do with somebody that doesn't have much training. I mean, they might have the minimum requirements, but if you haven't, been involved in that before and have some background to be able to make decisions, be it
Right.
a mess run or a fire run, it can lead to some problems.
Right. I understand. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, is there anything else?
That's all I have at this time, unless you have any other questions of me.
I have none. Does anyone else? Can I have a motion to accept the chief's report?
Move to accept.
Second.
It's been moved and second to accept the chief's report. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Hey,
Opposed?
Having just walked through the music library that's here, and there are thousands of CDs sitting on the wall.
That's something else, I guess. Hearing none, the motion has been passed.
A small contribution to be able to unlock all of this classical music for you, to me is a no-brainer.
Someone?
Because not everyone can.
Dottie, you may need to mute your,
have the time.
Mute my phone.
well, there's some background noise. I don't
Oh,
know who else isn't on mute. I'm going back on mute.
Okay.
Back. Okay, turn it off.
All right, moving right along here. Reports or statements by trustees on old district matters. Hearing none. Reports or statements by trustees on new district matters. Okay, at this time, we're at the public forum. Oh, yes, Tom.
Sorry, one. Denny, I think I mentioned this at the last meeting, but sometime in January, date TBD, Silverton is probably going to host a solar panel discussion, and I'll give you information on the deadlines, the date
Yeah,
for that.
I appreciate that.
We may have, as a fire district, a really great solar opportunity. And I simply mention it because I'll be encouraging residents. It's going to be open to residents of Deer Park, Silverton, even some interest from Oxford. I'll communicate with you, BJ, on when that is in case you care to push it out to your residents. It's got nothing to do with Silverton other than work the convener, but I'd like the fire district to be involved if
We'd definitely be
or whether
interested in
it's
that, Tom.
feasible.
We'd definitely be interested.
Yeah, I believe, as I mentioned to you, Tom, that it's definitely something that it's crossed our minds before, but we didn't really know how to proceed or what it would take. So obviously it would probably take some engineering look at to make sure the building can support whatever. But if it means we can, be a little bit more green, get some free energy from the sun, the district, obviously, for my opinion, we're happy to explore that opportunity.
Free is good. Thank you, Denny.
Any other? Okay, at this time, deliberations of trustees regarding the district matters, operations, finances, and any other proposed resolutions or enactment.
Don, we do have a public comments. They can't speak, but if there is a chat available.
Okay.
So we'll see if anything comes up. Doesn't look like it.
Is there a chat room? I'm not sure. I don't see it. I thought Alan had disabled my chat room, which seemed like a good choice, but
I think that Ryan from ICRC.
Got it. Sorry, Alan, I didn't mean to impugn.
Would be able
Read my
to
mind, Tom.
monitor that for us.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. There's no one there right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Okay. Reading of noteworthy district correspondence or communication.
No.
All right. How about the, excuse me, passage of any prepared resolutions or other legislative enactments?
This is Steve. I do have a comment about practices.
Go ahead, Steve.
I had the opportunity to be on a squad run in Silverton for my sister-in-law, and the paramedics that came to the assist did a great job, and my sister-in-law did very, very well. And she just raved about the fire department, who about a year or two ago resuscitated her husband with a full cardiac arrest. He's doing fine too. So she had a very great experience.
Yep. Thanks, Steve. I did pass on your email to the crew that was working that day, and they much appreciated the kind words from everybody. So thank you for that.
Super.
Well, I guess, Denny, that means you've been doing a great job, at least since 2017.
I try, Don.
Okay. All right, we're at the resolution 2020-08.
Okay. Resolution requesting the county auditor to make advance payment of taxes. This is something we do every year, just to get our money a little sooner than later, the tax money.
Move to accept.
Second.
Is there any discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You gotta do a roll call vote on that, John.
Excuse me, I forgot.
I'll do the roll call.
Thank you.
Frank Maupin,
Yes.
Dottie Williams,
Yes.
Tom Carroll,
Yes.
Don Kincaid,
Yes.
Britt Bourne,
Yes.
BJ Yetter,
Yes.
Dan Lehan,
Yes.
Steve Imhoff.
Yes.
Any discussion?
About how much money would that be again?
That is, where is that?
It's gonna be about $1.4 million.
Sounds good. We need that money right away.
Well, usually they just send it out a couple times a year, but if we give them the advance, then we get it more often.
Makes sense. Where is it?
All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. The motion or the resolution is passed.
Okay, we have resolution 2020-09, a resolution approving the annual appropriation resolution.
Everyone is read and know that it's okay. All right, may we have a roll call, please?
Do we have a motion? Did I miss that?
Second.
Who? I didn't hear it. I'm sorry.
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Who made the motion?
Will someone make a-
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay.
I
thank-
heard somebody, but I didn't hear who it was.
I know.
Or may we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Frank Maupin,
Yes.
Dottie Williams,
Yes.
Tom Carroll,
Yes.
Don Kincaid,
Yes.
Britt Bourne,
Yes.
BJ Yetter,
Yes.
Dan Lehan,
Yes.
Steve Imhoff.
Yes.
Okay. There's a couple things that I put in your packets that'll be for the next meeting in February, the annual board meeting calendar and the bylaws, because in February, you'll have consideration of potential or proposed revisions to the bylaws. You will also have election of board officers and any other board governance matter to be placed on the agenda prior to the meeting. We'll have an annual resolution for online auction. We'll adopt the schedule for regular meetings. And it says the fire chief director of operations evaluation. That's it.
Okay. Got it. Okay, well, we passed the resolution. May we have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved in second. It's been sweet, people. We are now adjourned.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes, and safe.
Thank you.
You too.
Thank you.
Stay safe, everyone.
Oh, yeah.